Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Fatir Qureshi. I'm a PhD student at RPI in biomedical engineering and specializing in deep learning. Today I'll be presenting on using biomarkers to predict autism spectrum disorder diagnosis. So a little bit of background on my project. I'm sure all of you are probably familiar with what autism spectrum disorders are. They encompass a large group of early onset neurodevelopmental conditions that are characterized by difficulties with social communication and restricted and repetitive behavior. One thing that has been alarming has been the growing increase in the prevalence of this disorder, at least in the United States. It's estimated that 1 in 59 children are diagnosed with autism, and this overwhelmingly affects boys compared to girls, with 4.5 times the number of boys that are diagnosed. Another thing is that autism spectrum disorders are hardly isolated. They often occur with other conditions such as seizures and like stomach problems. So this is something that has a very holistic impact on individual children's lives. So understanding a little bit about what causes autism, there's been a lot of controversy in recent years about what the root causes of autism really are. It's currently believed that about 50% of autism spectrum disorders stem from genetic causes, while also there being a 50% environmental impact as well. It's known that many body systems are affected by this condition besides for just the brain. Specifically, the gut-brain axis, the immune system, mitochondrial defects are correlated with autism spectrum disorders, oxidative stress, epigenetics, which is the relationship between the genome and the environment, which modulates protein expression. These are all things that autism spectrum disorders are impacted by or can be impacted from. So these figures. So one of the challenges of autism spectrum disorders is diagnosis. The only way to actually determine if someone has this condition is through a psychometric evaluation by a trained healthcare professional. And this is something that's really difficult, especially in communities that may not have the best access to healthcare. But we are proposing that it's possible to make a diagnosis just using a patient's biometrics alone. And we believe that this will greatly improve the quality of life because earlier intervention leads to better prognosis for children that have this condition. And in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala implores that we are the best people raised for the good of mankind in Surah Al-Imran. So this is the real motivation behind this work, is to really improve the lives of children that have autism spectrum disorders and provide them resources that they need to help them succeed. Okay, so basically what our lab does is that we incorporate data from genetics, metabolism, and the environment, and use this to make a diagnosis, or at least a prediction of a diagnosis for children using biometrics alone. We're specifically looking at blood plasma because this is something that's easily accessible. You can just do a blood test and you'll be able to characterize if someone has autism spectrum disorders or if they have a likelihood of having such conditions. So there have been a number of studies that have been performed. So far that have looked at differences that are observed in the biomarkers of people with autism spectrum disorders compared to people that are typically developing or neurotypical. These differences raise significant potential for the development of a biochemical test. If you can see from this graph, we applied some machine learning techniques such as Fisher discriminant analysis and support vector machining to separately cluster individuals with autism spectrum disorder from those that are typically developing with a very high substantial degree of accuracy. We were able to correctly predict 95% of children using our test alone, and this is something that can be further validated by other biomarkers as well. So this is something that is truly a work in progress and has significant potential. So in summary, currently there is no way of diagnosing autism without a psychometric evaluation from a trained professional. Using the data that we've shown that there is a potential for the development of such a test, and it has a significant impact in terms of its ability to help diagnosing these children early and then getting them on the pathway that they need for their intervention to help them have a better prognosis in the end. So these are my references, and If anyone has any questions, I'd love to take them now. And if anyone is interested in machine learning or biochemistry, I'd feel free to reach out to me after this presentation as well.